Hey guys, welcome back to Trade or Die. So, today we're going to talk about what not to do when you're trading. I did everything that you're not supposed to do. So, firstly, my strategy. Today, my strategy has been all over the place. So, I'm going to go through each setup and then talk about what I should have done according to the strategy. So in this first section here, I have about 7 different setups. In the last section, I have a bunch of BS. So to start, today was a big day. There was news, CPI news, moves the market, and it's tier 1 data. So high level to risk, and you shouldn't be in any type of trades, especially during, because then you'll lose that account. So with this funded account, I really need to manage risk better. I was still gonna plan on trading minis because it only makes the most sense to do. Right now though, we're gonna essentially review my strategy and then talk about how I can continue hitting those type of plays and those trades. So let's look at this first setup over here at 10:45. To 10:45, perfect setup. For me, my setup is always like this, right? Minor structure breaks, right? So if we look at it from over here at this angle, we see, okay, we made a new high, we broke minor structure. Now the second thing to look at is this candle right here. Is this candle at least $8 minimum? Right now, 83 to 96. So that is $8 minimum. But now the next thing we have to look at is whether or not the wick on the previous candle, which is this candle right here, if this wick is greater than this candle over here, then we do not enter the trade no matter what. So clearly my first setup shouldn't have gotten this regardless. Price did end up moving up, but then shortly after it came down. So even if I had my what do you call it, even if I had my auto break even on, it might not have triggered. But let's see, this one looks like it should have, but it didn't, unless I moved it. So this one did trigger, however I moved it and still made a loss. So that's one thing I cannot do going into next week. Just taking out my notes here. What I need to make sure that I don't do is trade invalid setups. Do not trade invalid setups, number one. And then setups, and then number two, do not move auto break even. The reason why we keep auto break even is because as an eval account, we want to make sure that we are protecting our capital. That's always going to be the move. Protect capital, protect capital, protect capital. So trade number one, first setup, horrid. First setup is horrid. It's not even a real setup, actually. I shouldn't even put it in here. So let's see, trade number one, bad setup. Now we're going to look at trade number two. So now trade number 2. This setup was actually pretty decent. I had structure break over here. However, we didn't break the minor support / resistance over here. Price still could have went down, but overall on the second setup, I would take this 10 times out of 10. So let's say this setup is a good setup. Now we need to look at the third setup over here. So this setup over here was mainly on structure, and again, bad setup. It's not according to my plan. And number 2, even if I was buying this, the wick is too high. So again, I just didn't follow the instructions. That's completely fine. Completely fine. So now we're gonna look at the third setup. Or no, what am I on? 1, 2, 3. The fourth setup. We're gonna look at the fourth setup, and on the fourth setup, this is a type of trade I actually would take again and again. Overall, the wick wasn't too long on that trade, and the body was also 70 minus 61, so it's greater than $8. So again, I would take that setup. And then we have another setup right here. So on this setup, I took a buy. The reason I took the buy was because I seen that we broke the minor resistance. However, again, the wick is too long on the prior candle, so this instantly made it invalid. So bad setup, should not take these. And then where is there another trade? I have another trade set up right over here. On this setup, it's a little weird because, well, you know, the wick on the prior candle, it is quite long in the opposite direction, but then we also have another leading wick right behind the prior candle over here. So for these setups, we always have to be careful with, you know, where those wicks are. This did go into profit only for a short amount of time. And then how far did it go? So this actually should have hit my auto break even, which probably ended up moving. So again, do not move auto break even. And now last setup over here. Last setup was just complete bullshit. There were no pullbacks, nothing was happening, and essentially it was just a waste of time and also risk. I think I did end up closing this early. Let's see. Did I close it early? Yes, I closed it early. So I didn't incur the full risk. However, more than half of it, which, you know, is not good enough, unacceptable. As far as setups for this day though, I think there were only 2 valid setups that I can actually see going into the session. So firstly is this setup right here, which I did take, and then also this setup right here. I would have been stopped out on both of them, and also this setup. So three in total. I would have been stopped out on both of them. So I should have lost a lot less than I did today. So now let's look into these last pair of trades over here. So this trade was very similar to the one we just talked about. Candles were going down, but there's no real pullback. On the first pullback that we do have though, again, the wick is still too long, so bad setup. Don't take it. Don't take it. Don't take it. So we'll count this whole entire range right here as one setup, and then this trade as another setup. So then on trade number, what is this? 6. So trade number 6 or 7, whichever one. Again, bad setup. This is also another bad setup too, because number one, I stacked into this position 3 times. So my risk instantly tripled. And then number 2, on the third entry here, we still didn't get the wick being greater than or smaller than the prior candle. And so again, there's no reason to actually enter this trade. Once I do see it going down though, I do try to get an entry on the pullback. But again, with this guy too, terrible setup, because again, the wick is longer than the prior candle. So overall, just bad setups. Like, today should have been easier than I made it, because again, we had setup 1, 2, potentially 3. But overall, like, out of the 7, 8 setups I took, only 2 to 3 of them were valid. So my goal for the rest of the week is to take only valid setups. Take only valid setups. So Wednesday, I might be trading, I might not be, but I definitely plan to review the day. And then if I do trade, I'm going to compare those setups to setups I should actually be taking. So a good setup versus a bad setup. Today, for example, majority of my trades were bad setups. So less than half of them were any good. And this is not the best way to grow my account right now, but it is what it is. Yeah, that's about it, guys. If you have any comments, questions, leave them below. And shoot, last thing, since I'm doing this whole challenge, since I'm down right now, I'll just share this. But basically, started at 150,000 and now I'm down 25. That is crazy. But it's okay. There's still plenty of time to bring that back up, and 3x it, 4x it, whatever I need to actually pass. So let's continue trading and risk on, people. Bye.